When an officer responded to a late-night call, he never expected to find a frail old German shepherd lying in the snow, beaten, bleeding, and barely alive. But when the truth about who this dog was finally came to light, it shook not only the officer, but the entire town. His breath clouded in the freezing air as he scanned the quiet streets, the glow of streetlights casting long shadows. It was supposed to be an uneventful patrol, until his radio crackled to life. The call had come in from a passerby, strange noises in an alley. Something that didn't sound right. Mark adjusted his coat and followed the directions, his flashlight cutting through the heavy snowfall. As he turned the corner, the noise reached him, a faint whimper, fragile and broken, carried on the wind. His pulse quickened. He tightened his grip on the flashlight and stepped deeper into the alley. There, half buried in snow, lay a figure that made his chest tighten, a German shepherd, frail and unmoving. Mark's throat went dry. The dog's body was trembling, blood staining its matted fur. He knelt instantly, brushing snow away with shaking hands. This wasn't just an abandoned stray. Something terrible had happened here in the dark of night. Mark dropped to his knees in the snow, his heart pounding as the beam of his flashlight revealed the full horror before him. The German shepherd was old, its muzzle grayed, its body thin, every rib visible beneath the matted fur. Dried blood clung to its side where a fresh wound oozed slowly. The dog let out a faint whimper, its eyes half closed but still holding a flicker of life. Mark reached out gently, whispering, "Easy, boy. You're safe now." The shepherd flinched at his touch, as if bracing for another blow. That single movement tore through Mark's chest like a knife. Someone hadn't just abandoned this dog. They had beaten him. He noticed the bruises, the scars layered over old wounds, the signs of long-term neglect. This wasn't an accident. This dog had endured cruelty for years. Mark slid his jacket off and wrapped it around the trembling body, shielding him from the cold. "Not tonight," he muttered, voice tight. "I'm not letting you die here." As snowflakes drifted down, the officer realized this shepherd carried more than scars. He carried a story. Mark lifted the frail shepherd into his arms, shocked at how light the dog felt. Every bone pressed against his uniform, every labored breath a reminder of how close the animal was to slipping away. Snow stung his face as he sprinted toward the patrol car, whispering urgently, "Hang on, boy. Don't give up now." He laid the dog gently across the back seat, wrapping him tighter in his jacket before slamming the door and starting the engine. The heater roared, but the shepherd still shivered violently, his breath shallow and uneven. Mark dialed the emergency vet clinic, his voice breaking as he reported the condition. Red and green lights blurred past as he raced through the quiet streets. One hand on the wheel, the other reaching back to touch the dog's head. The shepherd's eyes fluttered open for a moment, locking with his, as if pleading for one last chance. Mark swallowed hard. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a fight against time, and he was determined not to lose the clinic. The staff rushed to meet Mark as he carried the shepherd inside. The old dog was placed gently on a metal table, his shallow breaths echoing in the sterile room. Veterinarians worked quickly, cleaning wounds, checking vitals, and starting for fluids. Mark stood nearby, fists clenched, unwilling to leave his side. As they shaved the fur around the deepest gash, one of the vets froze. "Look at this," she murmured. Beneath the tangled coat were layers of old scars, each telling a story of battles long past. Some were clean cuts, others jagged tears, signs of years of hardship. Then another discovery made everyone pause. Tattooed faintly inside the dog's ear was a number, faded, but still legible. The vet looked up, her brow furrowed. "This isn't just any stray. He was registered, trained." Mark's breath caught. He leaned closer, noticing the worn patches along the shepherd's neck where a heavy collar had once rested. This dog wasn't simply abandoned. He had a history, one that hinted at loyalty, service, and perhaps a betrayal buried deep in time. Mark couldn't shake the image of the tattooed number. As the shepherd rested at the clinic, he began digging for answers. He contacted the station, requesting access to old records, and combed through files deep into the night. Most led nowhere. Lost reports, missing details. But then a faded document caught his eye. Years ago, a German shepherd named Shadow had served in the department's K9 unit. Decorated, Fearless and credited with saving lives, Shadow had been a legend. But one night, he vanished. The records listed him as missing, presumed dead. No explanation, no closure, just silence. Mark's pulse quickened. Could the frail old dog be Shadow? The scars, the tattoo, the trained resilience, it all lined up. But if it was true, then someone had hidden the truth for years. That he spoke with retired officers and locals, piecing together whispers of betrayal. Rumors that Shadow's disappearance hadn't been an accident. Some claimed he'd been sold off, others that he'd been discarded when he grew too old to serve. Mark clenched his jaw. Whatever the truth was, he was determined to uncover it. Shadow's story wasn't over yet. The next evening, Mark returned to the clinic with a stack of records in hand. The old shepherd, now confirmed as Shadow, lifted his head weakly when Mark entered, his tired eyes flickering with recognition. It was as if he understood his story was finally being told. Through hours of digging, Mark pieced the puzzle together. Shadow had once been one of the most decorated K-9s on the force, celebrated for bravery in drug busts and search and rescue missions. But as he aged, his strength waned. Instead of being honored, he had been cast aside. Worse, betrayal had come from within. A corrupt handler, seeking money, had sold Shadow off after staging his disappearance. From there, the dog had fallen into the hands of cruel owners, enduring years of neglect and beatings. His scars were proof of every hardship he'd survived. Mark's chest tightened. Shadow hadn't been just a victim of cruelty. He had been betrayed by the very people he had once served with loyalty. The truth was heartbreaking, but it also sparked something else, a determination to give this old hero the dignity he deserved. News of Shadow's story spread quickly. Within days, the small town was buzzing with shock and outrage. How could a hero who had once protected them be left beaten and forgotten? Local papers ran headlines, and neighbors stopped Officer Mark on the street. Their voices heavy with sorrow and anger. The clinic. Visitors began to arrive, families with children, veterans who remembered Shadow's days of service, even strangers who simply wanted to thank him. They brought flowers, treats, and handwritten notes. The old shepherd, frail but alert, wagged his tail softly as gentle hands stroked his fur. For the first time in years, Shadow wasn't alone. He was surrounded by love, respect, and gratitude from a community that had once celebrated him, and now vowed never to let his sacrifice be forgotten. Mark watched quietly from the corner, his heart swelling. The truth had hurt, but it had also united the town. And in their eyes, Shadow was no longer just an old, beaten dog. He was a hero reclaimed. Weeks later, Shadow was strong enough to leave the clinic. Though age and scars slowed his steps, his spirit was brighter than ever. Officer Mark brought him home, laying a soft bed beside the fireplace. For the first time in years, Shadow slept without fear, his body curled in warmth instead of cold. Every evening, Mark sat beside him, hand resting on the old shepherd's back. Shadow would lift his tired eyes, and in them Mark saw gratitude deeper than words. It was a bond forged not just from rescue, but from shared pain and healing. The town continued to visit, children kneeling to hug him, veterans saluting as they whispered, "Thank you for your service." Shadow, though frail, carried himself with quiet dignity, as if he knew his place in history had been restored. One night, as the flames flickered low, Mark whispered, "You're home now, buddy. No one will ever hurt you again." Shadow let out a peaceful sigh, resting his head against Mark's hand. At last, the hero had found peace.